We made peace a symbol of ours. In the name of peace we gather here now. Oh Lord, please make these days of ours on this earth filled with peace. Salamun, 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 salam. Salamun, 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 salam. Salamun, 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 salam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to your program, Heroic or Heretic. In this program, we've been talking a lot about so many of the issues that modern jihadi groups, extreme modern jihadi groups today discussed and propagate. We talked about many issues like the concept of khilafah, the concept of jihad, the concept of targeting civilians, and many of the doubts and evidence that they used to justify their positions. And so many different things we covered in the last episodes. I remember last time we were talking about the issue of the West being in a state of war with the Muslims. So it's Islam versus the West. And this idea, it's very popular for many reasons. Not only among the jihadis group, but even among an average person in the Muslim world. And I would like to share a few points before we go to talk specifically about ISIS as one of the most famous names today when it comes to these jihadis group in our time. First of all, regardless if the West, instead of war with Islam or instead of war with Islam or Muslims or not, this does not justify attacking civilians. That doesn't justify, no matter what's the answer, yes or no, does not justify for us or for them is to go and attack the civilians and kill the innocent people, as we clear that before. So even if the answer is yes, doesn't justify what they're doing by targeting airmen, target tourists and targeting masajid and things of that nature in Muslim country or the non-Muslim world. Number two, I think we should look into this issue in more detail. Is it really in the West instead of war with Islam and with Muslims? The problem is when they say with Muslim, because they believe the only Muslim in the world are them. They are the real Muslims, and everybody else doesn't represent Islam. Because if you notice, even in the West, whenever America or any one of these countries attack or target through drones or target any groups or places in the Muslim world, they target these jihadist groups. They don't go bomb Cairo, they don't go bomb Sana'a, they don't go bomb Riyadh, or they don't go bomb the Muslims who live in the country. They maybe go and bomb and attack a specific these extremist group in these countries. So to say they are in war with all the Muslims or with the Muslims, that's not true. They are in war with these extreme jihadist groups. And I don't think American only or Europeans only. I think even Muslim world in a state of war with these guys. All Muslim world agreed to be unified against the voice of extremism. And they are after them everywhere they exist, because we see how dangerous these groups are and how deviant they are. Not heroes, they're not Islam supporters, no matter what they say, they are heretics. They are not heroes, and that's the whole point. So that's number one. Number two, I would like to say that Western world in general, their foreign policy is based on their best interest. It's not based on religion values. It's based on an interest. Where is my interest is? It is with this or that, it is here or there. You know, that's their values. And they act upon that. And sometimes we as Muslims, unfortunately, we don't see it this way. Because many times we don't act upon our best interest as a country. We don't act as a best interest for our own people. Unfortunately, we sometimes prefer to please people who are outside our area over our own people, our own citizens. But Western countries are not like that. They always look for the best interest of their governments, of their values, and they live for. And I don't believe that this is necessarily based on religious values at all. It's all secular values. Saying that a Muslim country occupied by Western or by America. In many of these countries, already the occupation ended. Like in Iraq or in Afghanistan, or declare the end of the occupation. But still, the war continued from these jihadi groups. It didn't end. So I think the claim they occupied, it's just not really the real reason for them to do that. Whether there's occupation or not, they will do what they're doing today. They have many other justification for what they're doing, which is something we mentioned before. So it's not about the occupied or not. And also, if you want to frame it, you can argue by saying that many of these countries, their occupation is by the invitation of other group in this country. And Afghanistan was with the alliance of another group of Muslims in Afghanistan, and the same thing in Iraq. And you can to make it like it's like the old days where people come and just kick everybody else and occupy it is not like the occupation of Palestine, for example. Completely different two pictures. And I think it's not fair to look at it in the same way. Because the fuqaha are not emotional. Al-fuqaha, they look at in a very technical way, and we have to see it in to put it in the right frame, because that will require from us to issue a fatwa that based on the right understanding of the situation. Not just an emotional talk, an empty talk. Also, we can cite that they say, oh, they support Israel, for example. Yeah, but also they support many other Muslim countries. If you're going to pick one, why you leave the rest? As a matter of fact, the amount of aid that goes to the Muslim country collectively, more than what goes to Israel. And you can't just say that it is, regardless of the number, but if you say that's what make them a legit target, it doesn't. Because also they aid and help a lot of other countries as well, Muslim countries as well, and they consider them allies. And that's here the problem when the jihad in the hand of individual, not a political leaders. That's what happened. This kind of very naive understanding of politics. There's very symbolic way of looking at the world, just a black and white. That's what happened when you don't have a political entity that see and analyze and deal with the world today. And I said before, if you have some individual in these countries made a statement against Islam and Muslim, there is hundreds of other statements made to support Islam and Muslims and to say that we're not in a state of war. We don't gain anything by making it a religious war. And that's the bottom line. But there is people pushing us toward that direction. And we should stop, hit the brake, and we don't accept that. And I will tell you that, in my opinion, there is a lot of people use this. Oh, this is America or the West or doing this because they hate us, the Islam Muslim. And the one who's saying that, has nothing to do with even, is not considered Islamicist. They are anti-Islamicists. Islamicists. They are anti the Islamic movement completely. Some of them are communist and socialist. And so very liberal. But unfortunately, many times in the Muslim country I found that they accuse them, America and the West, and they attack it to cover up the failure system that they have in their own country. They're failing in their own country, so every time in the media they use the West and America as, something just to make people angry and release their frustration in these countries. And under the table, they are the one who actually, I don't want to turn this to be a political, but they are the one who are, as we say, in bed together. But the reality is a lot of time, the frustration that made against the West is by people, they use this just to cover up the failure of their system. And unfortunately, sometimes we, in a naive way, we take that bait and we go and become more angry in the West. I think putting hate and anger in the heart and the mind of people against West or East is not going to benefit. I don't care if you, I'm not here to make you love West or like America. I don't care for that. Don't ever like them. Don't ever care for them. That's not my point. My point is to be balanced in our view. My point is to focus on our problems. My point is to be able to see the things the way it is so we can take the right course of actions. Because when you lose this balance, you can't make the right actions. There's this group, which is ISIS today, the Islamic State, used to be Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. It's a very interesting group. I've been watching them carefully and studying what's been said about them, reading a lot of research, books written about them, see them, people on the news, how they analyze the beginning of this group. And I know there's a lot of talk here and there, a lot of conspiracy theory behind them as well, that they're not real, they're just, made by intelligent community or whatever. But let's look at some of the information that we know about this group, because they are one of the most important names today in modern days when it comes to the modern extreme jihadi groups. Basically, the area that under their control, it's about 35,000 square miles. You know, that's like in the size of Jordan or size of Belgium, if you want to say that. But now, after the recent months with all the attack and losing territories, it became very, very much smaller. 1/3 of that, basically, size they lost. Some people made them worth about $2 billion group. $2 billion group. They said that at one point they made a revenue of $3 million a day out of the gas that they basically took over oil places in Syria, and they started selling the oil on the black market. Some report I said that they made $3 million a day. You asked me earlier how they make the money.
Yeah.
They got millions of dollars when they entered Mosul, and they took over all the banks there, and they steal all the money there. They took a lot of basically military equipment from the Iraqi armies as well. So they have a very a strong army. There's a big debate about how many of them. Some estimates said 20,000, I think that's very little, and some said 200,000 soldiers. Recent days, I heard in some reports by the Pentagon that about 30 to 40,000 people killed in just the last year of them. What are they? What's their goals? How did they start? Something we will talk about when we come back from the break, inshallah ta'ala. So let's have a quick break. We'll see you soon.
Peaceful, 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 peace. Peaceful, 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 peace.
If you're looking for a book to read that's going to give you what you need.
Hoda TV strives to remain the premier English language Islamic channel in the world. And to do so, we need your input. Send us your thoughts, suggestions and feedback through email at feedback@hoda.tv. Hoda TV is committed to helping others, so why not help Hoda TV share the message of Islam worldwide? Take part in helping spread the authentic message of Islam based on the Quran and the Sunnah throughout the world by sponsoring Hoda TV. Don't miss this unique opportunity to gain the reward from Allah.
Peaceful, 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 peace. Peaceful, 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 peace.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to your program, Heretic or Heroic or Heretic. We were talking earlier about ISIS or the Islamic State and Daesh, if you want to call it, and what they made of, how they started. And they said it used to be in the size of like Jordan as a size-wise, with estimated as a group worth $2 billion, $3 million a day, and their revenue mainly from all these oil field that they took over in Syria. And he said there's some estimate, say 20,000 people, soldiers they have, all the way up to 200,000 soldiers between these two numbers. But what's noticeable, there is a large number of Western fighter among them. It is at least over around 5,000 people, or some estimate 3,400 Western joined them and joined their cause and consider themselves fighters. A good number of women move and families move to be part of that phenomena or that Islamic State. You know, if you look at the history behind them, which is something important to know, where it came from, it's the same exactly way Al-Qaeda started in Afghanistan, with the training camps started in Iraq. A training camp for people who want to fight the occupations in Iraq. Afghanistan, occupied by, and I mean by Afghanistan in the old days when there is occupation of Russia, and basically there's a camp, train people start traveling from all over the Muslim world to join the fight against the Russians. The same idea, training camp started it in Iraq, people start traveling to fight the Americans who, and the Western, or the international coalition who occupied Iraq at that time after the fall of Saddam Hussein. It started by a very well-known person in this field. His name Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi. In 2004, he made a meeting with groups, Jama'at al-Tawheed wal-Jihad, which is he in charge of, and he gave his legion to Al-Qaeda, to Bin Laden. Then he came up with something called Tanzim al-Qaeda fi Bilad al-Rafidain, Al-Qaeda in the land of al-Rafidain, the two rivers. Basically the same ideologies, the same mindset, and he expanded his work. He became a big problem to the American, to the Iraqi at that time. His name Ahmad, I think, Nazzal al-Khalayla. He's originally from Jordan. And he started the war. And here I want to make something for the record. When this started, some good heart people, or people don't really learn the lessons from the past. Unfortunately, they show a kind of a sympathy for him and to his movement, and a little bit of support to what he's doing, not knowing how dangerous this is. The same road that produced Al-Qaeda to us. But people don't learn from what happened in Afghanistan in the 80s. They don't learn the lesson. They're repeating the same mistake again and again and again and again. And that's sad. We should learn from the history. We should learn from our mistake. Anyway, Zarqawi was a person who had a good grip over his group in control. But there's a lot of pressure on him, and he felt that he will be targeted soon. So he made a call who will take after him. He wanted to build something bigger than just Al-Qaeda and Bilad al-Rafidain. He sent a message. A reply came from Abu Abdul Rahman al-Iraqi, known as Qati' al-Ru'us, the one who chopped heads, said, Labbayka Aba Mus'ab, a very famous letter he wrote to him. I'm responding to you. And he joined this command's group with Zarqawi's group. They basically choose a man by name Abu Hamza al-Muhajir as a head of Al-Qaeda. After the death of Zarqawi, things escalate. Many groups, and I'm not going to go in details of this, but many groups came together, and several people died in the process, of Umar al-Baghdadi and others, in 2010. But they came to a point where all the groups, the jihadi groups, come together and in coalition with al-Nusra in Syria, and they declare the state of, first the Islamic State in Iraq. Then they made a deal with Syria, because Iraq basically in the borders, there's yes. about 300 kilometers shared border. So they opened up together, and they made this big, that became the states of Iraq and Syria. That's upset Al-Qaeda, because this is like how they take our people now, and became under an independent group, and even there is a back and forth between them. And finally, they declared the Khalifa Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to be the Khalifa, not only in this region, but for the whole entire world, Muslim world. And they ask every Muslim to join him, and everybody to basically in their local countries to give their bay'ah to him. And this is like, I think in August in 2014. And at that time, we always hear the spokesman, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, said no more called al-Iraq and al-Sham. The state of Iraq, Sham is the Islamic state for the whole world. Many names. One of the things that you will notice in these names, like Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, Abu Umar al-Baghdadi, Abu Mus'ab, most of the Abu Anas al-Shami, the religious figure, Hijji Bakr, many of these, two things you notice. Number one, most of them, they were participating in jihad before with Al-Qaeda, a member of Al-Qaeda, or part of that war that took him back in Afghanistan. And the other thing, a lot of them were ex-military with Al-Ba'ath group before. A lot of them were ex-military people. So that's why those people are well trained. They're not just no one. And some of them had role in the military before. So they understand how government done. And that explain how they were able to put a structure. You know, they build structure for their state. They have a Khalifa, they have Ahlul Hal wal Aqd, they have a Shura Council, you know, they had a religious committee in charge of it, they have a media committee, they have Baytul Mal, the treasury, they divide things to provinces. They were ready to launch what's called state. You know, just on paper, but in reality, it's really far away from being something solid on the ground. But what is so different about this group than any other jihadi group we know before? Number one, they use a lot of languages other than Arabic. So the message is not only in Arabic like we'd see in Al-Qaeda. There's a strong message in English, excellent message, English and French and in different languages. Also, they use media a lot, especially social media. They used to communicate with their followers using a very unique way that even modern intelligent communities in America and Europe could not trace their communication. Using, for example, Snapchat, which is something you can't trace. Using the FaceTime, using things like, for instance, using the communication through games and PlayStations and things of that nature, coded messages, very smart, very intelligent way of communicating with each other, spreading their message through Twitters and others, and they use this in their advantage, which is never used before in that level, to recruit a lot of people. That's why a lot of young people related to them, because they are very active in social media. The old generation couldn't relate to these guys as much as the young, and that explains why there are so many youth join them. One of the things also very special about them, they made themselves Khalifa for the whole world. This is nobody ever dared to that. One of the things also, they revival the concept of slave girls. And this is mainly to reward their fighters with giving them women, fulfilling their desires. And also to make them live that history. Remember, one of the things that we always see reality through history. So they want to bring that idea of slave girls and fulfill your desires and, and that's something very, became a very big problematic today. How even a lot of people ask what Islam position from that. One of the things I want to share about this is very ironic, that when it comes to slavery, enslaving people out of war, something never mentioned before, never mentioned in the Quran directly. Even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a verse that give an indication of that concept, He said, فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاء. He gave two options with the prisoner of war, that you free them for no, basically for nothing in return, or you free them for ransom, for a financial reward. Allah never mentioned the third option, which is the slave. Why? So it will not be something legislated. So it will not be something that mentioned in the Quran, so I have to do it. It was exist because that's how the culture was at that time, and Islam approved it with certain guidelines, but the Quran never mentioned it, so it will not be something encouraged to do. So why in the world these people will take the one thing that Islam is not interested in, and they became more interested in anything else? It is to fulfill desire. It's not for the Sharia reason or because we want to revive the religion. No, Islam looking forward to free people from slavery. not to enslave people. And that was something very unique. And also one thing unique about this group is women. A lot of women joined them. You know, in history, there's a lot of women from the Khawarij. Even the first woman ever give khutbah al-Jumu'ah, first woman ever give khutbah al-Jumu'ah in our history, was a woman from al-Khawarij, Ghazala. She went and she gave the khutbah in the masjid after her husband died in the battlefield. And we know a lot of women through the history were very active among the Khawarij. And one thing that you see today, that there is a big, huge amount of women, and they have Katibatul Khansa, and have leaders, and the women, and they have their own squad, team, and that's became a phenomenon, something never seen before in Al-Qaeda. And one of the reasons that I believe is because they want to benefit from everyone. They found women can be very active. Also, many of the people join ISIS come from a very conservative background. Conservative Muslims usually not very good in using women in the da'wah. Women don't play major roles in da'wah. So all of a sudden these women who are conservative and they never had a role to play in their community, someone telling them welcome and we have an opportunity for you. And that led a lot of them to move to overseas or to move to Iraq and Syria and to join them. Also a lot of women in the Western world especially, they don't feel that they are part of the society because they convert to Islam. They feel alone, they feel no support. And when they see someone willing to give them the support, definitely they will move there. They find their identity there. And that led a lot of people to move to that part of the world, unfortunately. It became more complicated because they got children. And what are you going to do with the children? Where are you going to go with the women after that? And some of them are very dangerous. Some of them commit themselves to blow themselves up and to hurt their own countries. So this is some of the things that I want to share about this this group, which is, I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah will help us to bring an end to their movement, because it really caused a lot of problem in the world, and especially among us as Muslims. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them and to guide all of us, because in the end of the day, all what we want is to wish good for them. We don't believe they're kuffar or non-Muslim. They are Muslims, they are our brother, but they are way deviant, way away, far away from the path of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And sincerely from my heart, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them and all of us. But that will bring an end to our episode today. Thank you very much for being with me, and thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Peaceful, 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 peace. Peaceful, 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 peace. Peaceful, 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 peace. Peaceful, 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 peace. We made peace a symbol of ours. In the name of peace we gather here now. Oh Lord, please make these days of ours on this earth filled with peace. Salamun, 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 salam. Salamun, 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 salam. Salamun, 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 salam. Salamun, 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 salam.